Yeah.
Okay, guys, you can join now. Start the recording. Oh, look at that. That's my part of my pre-calculus course I'm putting online. Anyways. Yeah, that'll be free. Physics 11. Okay. So you were supposed to plot this graph. I think I went over the first one, but it's not going to hurt to go over it again. So remember, when you're setting up the graph, you've got to have a title on top. And it's always made up of the dependent versus dependent on the y-axis. So it's this one here. You'll be told what the independent is, or I'll point it out to you in the beginning and then you'll get used to it. Usually the way to tell which one is the independent is to look for numbers like this. They're obviously hand-picked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are hand-picked. Those are chosen. So that's your independent. And so independent goes on the horizontal, and what's left over goes on the vertical. So when I plotted it, as I said to you before, force is here on the vertical. Acceleration on the horizontal. Now, if you properly scaled it, it should look like this. Okay? I'm not going to be overly finicky. I mean, just the main point is you're trying to use as much of the graph as possible. So if yours is a little bit smaller than this, I'm not going to obviously deduct marks for that. But if it gets too small, if it's this big, that's useless, right? You can't properly calculate a slope when it's that small. So to your best of your ability, try to scale it. That's why I taught you the method of scaling I did. That will allow you to maximize use of the graph. Okay, now I chose 2 points. In general, the rule is choose them far apart. So I chose this one here. This one here. And I found the corresponding values for the acceleration, the horizontal values, and the vertical values. If you're still having problems with that, because that can be, for some people, figuring out the divisions in that can be a little difficult. So let me know. I'll come around. I'm going to do that when we're working on the assignment. I'll help you out with that. Okay? So don't panic about that. It sometimes requires just a little one-on-one help. So I'll do that. So I chose my first point here. Why did I do that? Well, it was an easy one to read. That's why I chose it. And I chose one fairly far away. Again, that's kind of subjective, but again, choose a point that's fairly far away that you can easily read. I could easily read, in this case, I could easily read the vertical value for force, which was 22, and then the corresponding acceleration value wasn't too hard to figure out as well. So you don't have to list the values like I did. I did that for clarity's sake so that you could easily see what my force values were. I've got a 22 here. Whoa. And if you go down here, I've got a 4 here. Okay. I just wrote them down so you could easily see it. That would give me, when you do your calculation, that's your rise, 22 minus 4. And similarly for the acceleration values, the 5.3 here minus the 0.8 here, so that you could easily see what the run was, 5.3 minus 0.8. And then that gave me a value of 4. If you're a little off, I take into account it's going to fall within a range, so 3.8, 4.2. You're not going to lose marks for that. Now, here's the confusing part for a lot of people. It's the slope. How did I get the slope? How did I get this Newton's? You look at the slope value of the units and the unit for the slope. How did I get Newtons on top? I calculated this unit the same way as I did the slope. I chose the vertical unit, which was Newtons, and I divided it by the horizontal unit, which was meters per second squared. I divided the Newtons of the vertical by the unit on the horizontal, which was meters. I'm going to find this, fine-tune this. Meters per second squared. That's how I did it. That's how I got my unit. Now, when you're writing the value of the slope, make sure you include the units with it. That's why I put everything in brackets here. I'm just going to highlight the units in purple, just so you can more easily see it. Okay, do that. This is no longer algebra. You need a unit with your slope value. How you get your units? Same way as I just said. Vertical unit divided by horizontal unit. Okay, it's positive 4. If it's positive, you could just leave it as 4. I'll understand you mean positive. Brackets around this, followed by the independent. Why are you presenting, Kai? How does that work? Crap, that was bad. Okay, go back to here. How did that happen? That's pretty cool that you can present. Did you just join? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I joined it.
Yeah, it's Google. Google screwed up. Okay. Okay, back to this. I was just pointing out, I'll redo it. I was just pointing out this variable here, that is the independent. That comes after the slope. This is the dependent. That's what you plot on the vertical axis, in this case, force. You can abbreviate. You don't have to. Could I have written down force instead of F? Sure, you could. We don't do that because it's shorter to write force as F. Just write F. And instead of acceleration, instead of writing acceleration, you can see it's easier just to write A. So it's not wrong if you write acceleration. In fact, that's actually what it means. But we like to write the abbreviated form. Okay, next, y-intercept, that's easy. Just extend, go back to this line here. Extend it all the way to see where it meets the y-axis, which is, looks like it's at 1. Okay, and don't forget the corresponding unit, newtons. Where'd that come from? It's the units of the vertical axis. Boy, this is looking messy, but anyways, that makes sense? I would put it in brackets. You don't have to, but put it in brackets. This n is not a variable. That's why I like it in brackets. This a here is a variable. That's why I put it outside the brackets. Gets confusing with so many letters. Okay, now, the next graph was the distance versus time. When you plot it, it should look like this. I'll go over the slope value and y-intercept in a second, but it should look like this, a negative slope. Slopes downwards, which means negative. Okay, let's calculate the slope, and then we'll come to the y-intercept. So for the slope, I chose this point. This is my number 1 point. How do I know it's a number 1? It's closest to the origin. Doesn't matter whether it's farther up. Whatever point is closest to, according to the x-axis. If it's closer to 0, that's your first point. If it's farther away from 0, like this point here, that's your second. See how this is farther away from 0? That's your second point. Now, I did the same thing for these 2 points as I did for the previous graph. I listed the coordinates. You don't have to do that. I did it for your sake, so you could easily figure out what the values were. This is your corresponding vertical value for distance. Should be, sorry guys, this is kind of sloppy. This should be D here. So that's your distance value. That's your D1. And then next to that, well, I'll come back to that. Let's look at the distance values. For number 2, okay, corresponding distance value. This here is at 1. If you were to extend it all the way over, crosses the vertical axis at 1. That's where I got my D2. It's my D2 value. So why did I show that? Because you're going to take the difference between those two. So 13 minus the 1. Oh, pardon me. Always start off with the second value. So 1 minus the 13. Okay, so 1 minus the 13. That'll give you a negative slope. That way you end up with a negative value. What about your horizontal values? Well, let's go back to here. 1.5, I'm going to do that in red. 1.5, where'd I get that? I just, in my mind's eye, you don't have to physically draw this up. In my mind's eye, I just drew a vertical line down. And I asked myself, where does that cross the horizontal axis? Getting a little messy. It crosses it at 1.5. That's how I got that. Okay, that's my T1. That's my T2. T2 is where this crosses when I draw a vertical line, horizontal axis, which is 7.5. That's my T2. The rule is this: take the second point, even though it's farther below, it's still the second point, and then from that, subtract the first point. So subtract from 7.5, subtract the 1.5. 7.5 minus the 1.5. If you're unsure, you know just by the way the slope looks, it should be negative. So it should end up with a negative value, and it does. Okay. Now, the units. How did I get this? The rule is this. Go to the vertical axis. What's the unit? Meters. Okay, put that on top, meters. What do you divide it by? Whatever you plot on the horizontal axis, seconds. So divide that by seconds. So the unit is meters per second, which is a unit for speed. It's equivalent to kilometers per hour. Okay. Now, this is the first step. This is the confusing part with this one. You cannot, as you can see with this graph, because of the way I told you to scale it, you don't have enough room to figure out. You can't extend it to the y-axis. Don't have enough room. If you scaled it the way I did it. Okay, so the trick is this. Write the equation down with the y-intercept as b. Write the corresponding slope. You now know what the slope is. It's -2. This is the vertical variable, d. This is the horizontal variable, t. That's the first step. Second step is this here. That's step 2. What did I do? I chose a value for t and the corresponding value for d. Where did I get that? I chose this value here. You can choose any value you want, any point on the line. Data point or other, doesn't matter. I chose this point with these values, these coordinates. I plugged in, it's got a time value of 4.5, plug that in here. It's got a distance value of 7, I plug that in here. That allows you to solve for your B. That's the trick. Plug in a data point or a point on the line. Doesn't matter what point, any point you want. It'll work. That gives me the y-intercept of 16. Okay, now you can rewrite, you're going to rewrite this equation here. All you have to do is just add 16 meters to it. The same equation, but I just added this to it. Put it in brackets. Why did I do that? Because this m here is a unit. It's not a variable. Why is this t outside the brackets? Because it's a variable. That's your final equation, correct. What's the point of the equation? You can predict with the equation. You can predict what? Given a certain, erase this. Given a certain time, you can predict how far it's traveled. That's the power of an equation. If you're able to predict things in the future, you'd be a trillionaire. You'd have bets. Oh, I know exactly. Well, you can't use this equation. Obviously, everyone knows it. But if you knew an equation for every future event, I know where the stock market's going tomorrow. Unfortunately, there's not really an equation for stock markets. But prediction, my point is to be able to predict is very powerful. Okay, now just as a side note, this is the equation that we derive from the graph is what we're going to use over and over in this course. It's the equation for, you want to write this down. It's the equation for constant, oops. It's the equation for constant speed or velocity. Velocity, I mentioned earlier, is just another word for speed with a direction. Sorry if this is getting messy, but when I post these notes, I'll erase all this stuff. Okay, so yes, I would memorize this equation. We rearranged for it, right? So we're definitely going to use it. Sometimes you'll see it written as, instead of that, you'll just use a small d instead. It's the same thing. Same equation. Okay, so this is what I'm going to give you as an in-class assignment. You'll have time to work on it in class. If you need more, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You're going to just take a snapshot of it. You finish it before class. Post it today. You'll have all the way up to the end of the day to get it. You can post it tonight if you want. I'll mark it by tomorrow. Okay? That gives me time to help you, right? I can go around and just help you individually in smaller groups. When I am coming around to help you with smaller groups, because it's somewhat larger class, try to hover around me when I'm explaining it to a group of two. Maybe I'll call some of you up from other groups so I can save a little time. Okay? Well, you can start on this. Yes, I'll individually mark this one, but make sure you're careful on writing out the equations. Now, having said that, I need to, what you're trying to find here is the equation of the line. So I need to see the calculation of the slope. I need to see that calculation. If you want to skip right to the equation, which includes the y-intercept, you can do that. But I need to clearly see the equation for the slope. Okay? I also need to see the two data points. So mark those off so I can check it. That'll help me. Okay, so you can start on this. You've got lots of time. If you're finished early, I've got something from the workbook for extra practice as well. So let me know if you finished early. Like water. Yeah. Find the equation of the line should be equation of these four graphs. Oh. Oh wow. What? Yeah. I think three.
Thank you. Wait, can I buy your Yeah.
I don't think I have to record anything more. I'm going to keep this running just in case I have to explain some other things. That sounds weird. I didn't get it. Okay. I'll be right back. So yes, as I said earlier, this will be on the test. This is the last thing on the test. So I'll get you a list. I'll do that, and then I'll start coming around and helping you. Just give me a minute.
So easy.
Oh, I know. Kind of.
I don't even know what
You have to find point.
I need to look at the section. Hold on, what's in, bro? You seem like you'd be good. Oh, we can do last. I would. I would.
Test.
Don't we need 2 points?
Yeah, it's always, for clarity's sake, when you're finding the slope, it's y2 minus y1, not y1 minus y2. 2 comes first. So the second point is always the one that's to the right.
Yeah, this one is. So you just.
I didn't listen to it.
Are we on the right one?
It's okay. Clark G. Friday next week. State number of certificates.
One sec, guys. I'm just gonna post this for your test, then I'll come around and help you.
How'd you get Friday? Oh. Wow. Well, this is supposed to be plus. Or does he plus? Okay.
Okay, so the information on your tests has just been posted. You can have a look at that later. Let's get through this assignment first. Okay, guys, ladies and gents, show me the points that you're choosing. Maybe make it easy on me and list the data points for this assignment. That would be helpful. Okay. What do you always have to include with the slope and the wires? Number and, we're talking about measurements, right? Unit. Yeah. So. Now, show me the calculation. Right. Guys, it's not enough to write down the equation. I gotta see the calculation of the slope. Oh, is that it? What is it? Okay.
No, and she was saying, she's like, what they
Come back to your want to listen all of them.
I'm just like,
Yeah, it should be close. It's gonna be a little off. The answer is, I got close to 6.
multiply it by
Okay, so closing 6.4. So
by what's here. This number.
check your,
is
make
on the-
sure you have done the proper, set the proper coordinates.
So this is the other one.
So again, guys, mark off the points you're using and show me the calculation so I can see it. Let me finish. Now, I'll come to your question in a second. So you guys know, what do you have to put with the units? The first one is the unit. What about the wires? Yeah. It's everything. You just get it off the ground here, right? Well, each of these will be what? How many points? Five? One, two. Smaller divisions, there's 5 of them, right? So, you know, that's 40. Yeah, what did you, let's see about those. Yeah, guys, give me a number with a decimal.
1.3.
Yeah, that's 6.4. Yours is 6.3. Round off, also, round off to 2 sig figs. Put it in scientific notation if it's bigger than 100. Yeah. Okay, now, you're listening in, right? You can find the slope. What unit is the slope? We get to it. Okay, listen in to the group here. Girls? Ladies? Okay, so you got the slope one, good. Now you need to include the unit with the slope. How are you gonna find the unit with the slope? For the first one. Yeah, what's the unit? Yeah, so you take the vertical unit, divided by the horizontal unit. That would be your unit. You're right. Now, let's look at the second one. What's the unit for the slope of the second? For the second one. Newton's on top. Divided by the horizontal. That's the unit for the slope.
I'm not sure if this is.
It means square. Yeah, it doesn't look like that. How are you gonna find? Okay, so one group here. Otherwise, I'm gonna. How are you gonna find the wires? So in this case, what is it? Oh, I see. You can do calculation. If you can, then you're across the wire. Zero. You know what I said? See where it's finding the line, see where the line, if you can. See where the line crosses the wire. What's the unit for the wire? Really go over. Yeah, again, guys, use decimals for your slope and y-intercept. And make sure you have the first one. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be a little off.
So is it's never gonna be exactly the same, but it'll be somewhat close?
Yeah, I think that's. Oh, that's just 6 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's gonna be
Hey.
Scared me. This one is the
Yep. 16 plus here. There you go.
I just wanna ask you if this is great. All I need for that question.
I would, yeah, put it, yeah, calculate what it
Who's
is.
that for the, this for 1 year, right? It's showing this is the, whatever the equation, right? MX plus B, so whatever.
Your M is this, make sure you calculate it, will
Yeah.
be 6 points.
Yeah.
Right? Followed by the
Oh,
unit,
yeah, my bad.
meters per second,
Yeah, that's. cool.
in brackets,
Yeah.
right? Plus your y-intercept, and it's,
So how do I get the Y intercept?
oh, if you can't always do it, like in the example I just gave you, you could, but in these you can. Just extend the line, see where it crosses the y
Oh,
axis.
and get to 0, 0.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
this case it's 40.
Yeah.
Make sure you put in units. Yeah, that's right. I got, so rounded to 6 so that's 14. I got 15, but I understand it's gonna be within a range.
Yes.
That's right. But just make sure you always show me what those points are, right?
Yeah.
Guys, ladies, gents, for clarity's sake, when I'm marking it, when you're calculating the slope, show me again the points. I would write down the data or the coordinates as well, so I can easily check. That'll make it easier. Okay. Right. Huh? 21. Yeah, that's right. You got it. Make sure you include, see this one's negative. Make sure you include the negative slope, right? That one is right. Yep, I would check that one.
Really? Yeah.
Check that slope. Y-intercept is right. Unit. I reduce. Okay, yeah. That's a 50, yeah, so each small division is 50 divided by 5, or 10, that makes sense? So this is,
Like 10, 20.
yeah, that's 4. That makes sense? Yeah, it's hard to show you, but here, I'll do it on the board. So each of these, okay, you've got 50 here, right? 0 here. You've got,
Let's use 3. Like,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 small divisions, right? Take the 50 divided by 5. That means each of these smaller ones is worth 10. 10, 20. You got that? What is he doing? So that means it crosses at 40. Yeah. This one.
So MX meters per
That's
second
correct. Value meters, make sure when you
slash or
slash,
do you want it in fraction like M
like a
over
fraction.
S? Okay.
Treat it like numbers.
And then is that right? Plus
And then
40
include the unit, 40, whatever the unit on the vertical axis.
Meters?
M, just
Yeah.
put 40 M. Remember to include a unit with the y-intercept as well. Whatever's on the vertical axis. So meters here, newtons there, kilometers
Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh, okay. You know, it's not really stuff, right? From that?
Yes,
Oh. Is it? Well, okay, so here, and I did it, you can look it up on the video. What I was basically saying is, to find the equation of the line, you want to end up with something like this. Of this. But what is this in physics? This is whatever you plot on the vertical axis. So this graph is distance, this graph is distance. What you do is you take the first letter of the, so in this case it's D, instead of Y, you get D. Is equal to, M, we'll come back to that, M is the slope. And instead of X, we go to the horizontal axis. We choose the first letter times T. T. And times T. Now, if it is this graph, it would be A, this graph would be T, and this graph would be A. The Y, E instead of X would be, because now we're dealing with real measurements, distance. Plus, this is just whatever, in most cases, it'll be that you just see where the line crosses the Y axis. There, here it looks like, the hard part is reading. We need to know each of these smaller divisions. Yeah, realize, okay. If you haven't closed that, they don't remember. If you figure that out, then you can figure out what the corresponding, what the coordinates are. Anyways, my point is when you extend this line across, it looks like it's around 40. That would be like 40. Yeah. Go that way. Oh my God. 40 is what? Because in physics, it's not just a number, it's a unit. So the y-intercept is whatever the unit is. Still active, right? It's just T. The M I don't know yet. I'm just gonna write in what we know so far. That's where it's going on. D is equal to M. T is equal to 40. The question, what is that? The hard zero is slow.
Oh, you.
I'll prove it. Okay, I'm gonna, think, let's check this value. I think minus 6.1, let me double check. Yeah. Yeah. Put it in a decimal point. So actually it's 6.1. Not how much over here, I need to listen here. Let me see. Okay. So I just went over.
Yeah, well, I just have to.
How to find the equation, right? So instead of y is equal to mx plus PR form for this graph here is going to be dm times t plus b. So all I did so far is say instead of x, we're going to use t. We substitute whatever we're plotting on the x-axis for x. Time, we're going to use take the first letter t. Do the same thing for the y. Instead of y, I'm plotting this. Take the first letter. But I substitute for y. So next step, I can find this easiest thing to find is the y. How do you find that? Stand in line and see what process. Well, if you're having a problem reading these still, let me know. We figured out each of these small divisions were 10, so the line crosses. Yep, that's perfect. That would help me. Yeah, at the very least, it's in good. That's actually perfect. And that last one, make sure you got it. I'll check your value here. Okay. So we go on to the one. So yeah, choose 2 points like you did. So let me, this is my point that's farthest away. The point that's closest is the first point. So 70, yeah, that's right. I'll see. Well, this V1 here, looks like it's, you chose that point there. You see that? Oh, okay.
Is this?
Yeah, 20 minus 10. This is actually 10. So yeah, we get so it's up to 7, which is a little bit. See this value here? 10, it's actually a little bit above that. So it's actually 105. And you get more of an actual.
It's my birthday. She's like going out for my birthday dinner. So
You getting it?
says that.
Perfect.
It was not. It was a left judgment.
I would put this aside, you can keep it in the future, put it aside, because that's what put it aside. That's kilometers per second, right? Not meters. Tan, that's not meters. And that's the unit here, the slope, take that unit, and the unit for each that unit there, sorry, n divided by, that's the unit per second. Unit for this rock, n divided by, that's unit.
Put in brackets.
You need
The.
should whatever.
Zero.
Zero, one, the y, 3y. Check that.
Are you moving?
And then, yeah,
The left side?
Change down.
Or use that instead of
Y.
Y.
Rather than.
So.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So.
The unit for your y is.
Doesn't seem that hard. It's so easy, bro.
Just check, just picture your unit.
Kwame has to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let me check your value. I got for the slope to the second one. First one is 6.4 in that range. Second one 15. Next one 6.1 times 10 minus 7 times 7. Close. You can tell not a problem with that. Not very. And the last one is I got 4 times 10 to the minus 2. Negative. Don't forget the negative. Yeah, just with this, n divided by, this is the hard part. And on top, vertical unit, and then divide by meters, by none of the seconds. Strange, just copy what you got on the, yeah, divide by what you got on the. What was your? That it? Yeah. So you put it next to it, yeah, mine flash. Mine, you got 50, you got 60, right? Yeah. Fine. So you put 60. Yeah. You're gonna be off. Yeah. Okay, in brackets, that's your M. Remember, it's always at this one. Y is equal to M, X plus B. Yeah, that's your M.
So you, so we want the,
D here, F here, yeah, M. And then A here, yeah, you're 40 or whatever.
but we want the bracket.
Yeah. Yeah, because that means that this is M, this is all together, yeah. Okay. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. If you're done, surprise, surprise, we're finally working on out of your workbook. You excited about working out of your workbook? Page 13 and 14. Hey, ladies, gents, when you finish the assignment, I'm gonna set up a place where you can submit it in a second, take a picture of it, submit it to Google Classroom. When you've done that, then you can start working with your workbook on page 13 and 14. This is just homework. We'll go over this next day. Okay? It's for extra practice.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna post it on Classroom?
Yeah, I'll do that too.
Okay.
Also, one last thing, with any of the workbook questions, surprise, surprise, you got your QR codes at the back. You can check, you got answers. Not solutions, but answers. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Nick, yeah. Yeah, I'm just doing, sure, yeah.
So this assignment's, you have all the way up to midnight to hand it in. No? What? Here we go. There it is. You can submit it now if you want. I should put block C, right? Are you getting it? Yeah, and have a look at my lesson too. That's perfect, yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, this
Didn't use it.
You getting it? Take a picture of it, submit it. Double check your work rate. Huh? Yeah, I got same thing. 4 times 10 minus 2 negative. Make sure it's negative, it's looking down, right? Yeah, you know what? You need to say, that's the second point, that's your first point, you subtract.
Oh, that's the second.
Yeah, it's always farther away, it's always further to the right.
So I should check.
Yeah, that's your mistake. That's okay, you know what? It's okay, it's in there. Remember to put negative. Yeah, double check it. Yeah, looks like, yeah, make sure, check your unit. Yeah, right. You can see now that the high is a little inactive, so I take that. As far as this, around the 2 6 now, for these assignments. Yeah. That works out. That's what I got to see. Hey, you got all the way up to this. Yeah. And then the pumpkin turns into, or the chariot turns into a pumpkin. You get that joke? No one got that joke? What's so funny?
Sorry.
Is it funny?
Yeah, it's been so
Okay, good. That's good to hear. Any questions on that? Yeah, I mean, usually, I'm not gonna be picking this one. Put it in scientific notation if it's less than a decimal, right? So I got 6.1, but again, I think that it's gonna be that. This includes the unit for this one as well. That should be km over seconds, not seconds, right? Just seconds. Who were you with? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Make sure you that's 230 square. Yeah. I know.
I did find that. I know how to do it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you got it. So I posted the homework. Make sure you got that done for next day so we can go over it.
What if I trap somebody?
If you got any questions on the assignment, shoot me an email if you want.
Like in,
I never saw it.
really?
Yeah, I should have watched it.
Well, it's just, it's so bad, but if you have to watch it.
It was filmed the first, actually, it was filmed the first, and then they started.
Yeah, it's so bad, but it's so good. It's so,
I guess that's how you
yeah,
know.
it's so bad that it's good.
Oh,
What's that?
Yeah, like, remember?
I know.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's good.
It's so bad, but you know, like, secretly, like, it's
Always put the point as far as. If you're not sure, I mean, long-term members down. In general, the second point is like. That's all the space, so that's
Oh, yeah.
Interesting person. I went around my grade 10 class and helped prep them for their test today. And they're more intense than me. If I do it before I test. I'm not kidding, the energy level. It's like, oh my God. You guys are more like,
on and off.
probably because it's not a test. See what happens. I'm gonna do the same thing before your test. I don't know, I can't comment on that. I'm not saying you're not. Notice an energy.
How many points do you have?
Where do you get that?
So, are you saying?
What else can you get?
Just get your money back. It's so hard
It was the last one. You
So I
guys
got split in
I did.
do like a three-way ratio.
I did that. Why don't you just open it first?
Yeah. Rip
I
the
missed
wrapper.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get something like clean feet. I don't have it.
Exactly. It was like brown, it was in between Peyton's legs and stuff, like. There's no way you're getting your feet.
This was not quite right.
Hey, guys, have a good afternoon. That was good. Good class. You got up to midnight tonight to submit the assignment. And get the Fig assignments in, please. I can, one more thing. Since my back's been out of commission for a while, usually I have tutorials the first 3 days. You can pop by today if you want it tomorrow. Yeah, Anthony, pop by today. We can finish it after school quickly. Yeah. Thank you. Take care. You're welcome. See ya.
I don't want it.
I